associated with that system. So it had basically some small scale rotation on the southern end of it for about the last 20 minutes, but it was not until recently they decided to go ahead and issue that severe thunderstorm warning and that tornado warning associated with it. Zooming out, we got a lot of activity across the area. We got another squall line trying to form its way across on the north end of Odessa in Midland along 385, non-severe, and then moving out toward the northern parts of Lenora and even toward La Mesa and Gale, all associated with the exact same system. So we've been keeping an eye on this for quite some time. Moving up toward Lubbock, yeah, still lots of very strong and severe storms associated with that entire system, but locally it's going to be two main areas of interest. It's going to be this one in Pecos County trying to push its way into Crane and Upton counties, but then we're also looking farther down south toward Sanderson, and while it might not seem like much, the radar can't reach as far south. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. I do want to show you guys the actual rotation I'm seeing on this model in particular associated with that tornado warned storm. So here's our velocity. This is going to show anything in red moving away from the radar, anything in green moving towards the radar. What you're looking for is those reds and greens, bright reds and greens together. That indicates rotation because something is heading towards you, something is heading away from you. You put the two of them together in 3 dimensions. Yep, you get rotation. So that's what we're keeping an eye on. Let me actually see in terms of what direction this is going to be going. This is really going to be tracking its way mainly along Interstate 10 and then having a bit of that arrow. I can't draw an arrow very well, so don't make fun of me. But I can tell you that, yeah, this entire thing is actually moving out along the northern end of the interstate. So if you are driving along the interstate, you've been hearing those alerts all over your radio, you're getting alerts on your phone. This is why. So we're also looking at another tornado, looks like another severe thunderstorm warning it just issued in effect for that area. We're continuing to watch this region because McCamey right now is getting the brunt of a lot of these storms. Iraan, Fort Stockton, you guys have been seeing a lot of action over the past couple of days and even pushing in for just a little bit longer. So we're going to be keeping our eye on this. I'm going to have to keep talking for a while, so hope you like the sound of my voice. Latest issue, new severe thunderstorm warning. We're looking at golf ball sized hail possible and about 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts associated with it. This is actually in effect for the same area we've been continuing to watch. They've now just extended that warning all the way out toward Rankin, and it looks like just to the edge of Iraan is now going to be under that severe thunderstorm watch. The only thing that looks very messy about this is what's going on the northern end of Crockett County. You're seeing a whole lot of yellow boxes. What's exactly going on here? Well, this is an area where our coverage maps tend to be a little bit iffy because we're actually looking at two individual National Weather Service offices. So National Weather Service of Midland covers much of Crane County, Upton County, and Pecos County, while Crockett County is actually covered by the San Angelo office. So you have kind of offices overlapping each other, but this tornado warning, this is straight from the National Weather Service out of Midland, and the path is just going to be for Pecos County. It is a very, very slow moving storm. It is not moving a whole lot. Look at how quickly this thing is going. Basically in the last 30 minutes it has moved maybe 10 miles an hour. It's not looking very strong in terms of, well, speed. In terms of strength from the actual storm itself, oh yeah, that is looking pretty strong. But notice one interesting fact. We've been watching a lot of the hail associated with this. That's why we're getting up anywhere from golf ball to almost tennis ball sized hail. But just backtrack it a little bit more. Look at how large that hail core was associated with that storm. Now that hail core is beginning to fall apart. It's beginning to bulge up a little bit more. We're not seeing as clear defined rotation, not clear defined hook echo. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. Looks like we just got another severe thunderstorm warning issued. So let's zoom out and see what we're looking at. This one is actually going to be for a storm just to the north in Lenora. So we're looking at Martin County into Howard County. This is going to affect places like Ackerley now. So if you're along Highway 87, Moving north of Big Spring, get ready. We got another severe thunderstorm warning issued until 4:45. Let's see the details on that storm. In particular, we're looking at 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and about quarter-sized hail. So we're going to be continuing to keep an eye on that. You probably noticed it looks a little ugly outside, but how come only small amounts of regions are actually keeping an eye on these storms? We're not seeing a whole lot of information. We're not seeing a whole lot of rain in general. Well, much of the rain that we're keeping an eye on is staying just to the outside of our areas. That's why we've been watching a lot of our cameras, and our cameras are showing everything outside looking really terrifying. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on a lot of these storms. A lot of this stuff is going to be just well to the south of Midland right now, but we also have one of our TxDOT cameras overlooking Sheffield. This is going to be a little bit closer to where that tornado is, looking a little bit farther out there. Not seeing anything. It just looks like very dark, ominous clouds, very flat bottom, so you're definitely getting a whole lot of rain and even some hail. This is actually looking on the southern end of that storm, which is likely where that tornado has been issued, or if we see anything on the ground. Right now, everything is just going to be radar indicated. Nothing confirmed on the ground right now. We are getting actual emergency management or EMS people out of McCamey reports of nickel-sized hail. So still going to be a little bit smaller than a quarter below severe status, but this is what the radar is picking up. Radar is picking up about golf ball sized hail, so about 1.75 inches in diameter. We're keeping an eye on that. Wind gusts up to about 70 miles an hour, and that is just even without the actual tornado itself. So we're keeping an eye on a whole lot of stuff going on across the basin. Let's move back down, see if I'm looking at any strong wind gusts across the area, because we're looking at some of these strong storms. Wind gusts themselves, not really a whole lot to run home about. 35-mile-per-hour gusts out of Odessa, 36 out of Midland. If you guys recall yesterday we had some of those really strong storms pushing their way through the region, forming in Upton County and Crane County, and then they let a wall of dust move into Midland, Odessa. Now, that dust storm warning actually stopped any kind of significant storms from really forming in the area in its entirety. So we've been keeping an eye on that entire system. Much of this action that we're going to see today, it's going to be very limited, very isolated, but it's going to be a lot more action than what we saw yesterday. Yesterday was kind of, hey, we either make or break. And the storm pattern today, it's the exact same way. We're either going to make it or we're going to break it. And right now, looks like we're making it. We got a lot of strong storms around the area. Two areas of interest that I'm keeping an eye on is the one right around the Stockton Plateau. That's where we saw the majority of those storms first starting off. And we had a quick little break of those storms really just trying to form on the northern side, right about here in between Crane and Odessa, but they all kind of fall apart. They kind of hit the cap. The cap is going to be that area of the atmosphere that is full of very warm but very dry air. It stops a lot of these thunderstorms from developing over the region. We are still seeing a whole lot of activity though, so we're keeping an eye on that area. But just to the north, oops, that's the wrong button. Just to the north, we see those storms forming just outside of the city. Yeah, it's missing the big cities. It's missing Odessa, Midland, and Big Spring. You can see it on your screen in front of you. I'm going to pause it so that it's showing what the radar is showing right now. Notice this bubble. It looks like we are literally in a bubble here. You got Odessa, you got Midland, you got Big Spring. No one is seeing any of that action going on. Notice this area. Are we seeing any showers? Not really. This is what I mean when I say I keep my coverage low. I know a lot of you guys are watching in Odessa, you guys are watching in Midland, you're watching in Big Spring. Those are the big cities we have out here. But none of these areas are seeing any of that significant storm development. We're seeing it just to our north, up toward Lenora, Lamesa, Gale, where we do have a couple of those already severe warned storms. And then you move just a little bit farther south and we still see a lot of action right around Fort Stockton, Iraan, and Rankin. So, to recap, I am taking over Jolina's show. Sorry, Jolena. But it's because we do have a tornado warning in the meantime that we're keeping an eye on. It's not looking like anything too significant over the area. Now, this is actually going to be tornado warned until 4:30. It's moving just to the north of Bakersfield right now. That's going to be a little small city. It's actually not even showing up on my map. It's a very small population, but it's moving out a little bit closer toward the interstate. It's moving out toward Iraan. It's moving out toward Sheffield if it continues moving. That's the thing, though. These storms are refusing to move a whole lot. They're just kind of sticking steady, not seeing a whole lot of development taking place, and not seeing as much rotation. Notice just before that storm really goes tornado warn, there's a lot of lightning. Now, a lot of lightning is pretty indicative that, hey, you're going to be seeing some pretty strong weather, some strong storms as they continue to push across the area. We also saw the hail impacts, some large-sized hail, tennis ball size. Emergency management in near McCamey is reporting about nickel-sized hail. And just for you guys' reference, here is where McCamey is on the map. It's going to be zoomed in just a little bit more right where this lightning strike is, just on the northern end of the storm. Looks like they're not getting as large-sized hail as the southern end, which is certainly going to be some good news, but we're going to be keeping an eye on that area. And you notice like one little block that's kind of not covered in the severe warning. It is technically. It is. It's like, hey, just that area is severe warning. No. National Weather Service doesn't work like that. So we're keeping an eye on the storm. Let me look at the latest details on the rotation itself. See if, hey, we're really seeing any kind of spin-ups here, seeing anything significant in terms of potential wind speeds, if that rotation is actually making it to the ground. Unfortunately, a number of the storm chasers across the country, they're actually on the northeastern side of the country because they're looking at the same level of severe risk that we are. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this for quite some time. But even if you're not expecting any kind of tornadic development, we are keeping an eye on the severe thunderstorm watch. Yeah, we got this issued a few hours back. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect for 9 p.m. tonight. This is going to include much of the metro region. So we're talking Odessa, we're talking Midland, we're talking up toward Big Spring. Most of the storms themselves, they're going to be kind of riding along Interstate 20, kind of popping up right around Fort Stockton and then moving on up and moving out. This one is going to be the one exception because it's the one that just stayed in Pecos County, which doesn't have any kind of watches. No severe thunderstorm watch, no tornado watch. Not that I expected. I mean, you don't need the watch to issue a warning, but it's one of those things that, hey, you know, it's kind of nice to know. Now, you're probably asking the reason as to why we're seeing some of those really strong storms across the area. Well, it's actually because we're under that pretty strong risk. We're under that level 3 enhanced risk, and it's affecting all of us into the overnight hours. Although much of these storms are going to be gone by the overnight. You don't need to worry about these hanging around till 1, 2 a.m. Midland, Odessa, that's the area that we're going to be seeing a little bit of those storms. And Big Spring up to Lamesa and Snyder, we're all going to be under that risk. Now, the biggest risk with a lot of these storms is going to be that hail threat. That hail threat, we're looking at about, I have potential for hail to be between 2 to 3.5 inches. I'm looking at wind gusts looking to be between 65 to 80 miles an hour. And if we do see a tornado, the winds within that tornado could be between about 100 to 130 miles an hour. So we're talking about an EF2 to possibly even an EF3 if we see it on the ground, if we see the damage path that some of these storms take. I'm not seeing that right now. And you know what? I'm not seeing a whole lot of super activity going on within this storm itself, but we're keeping an eye on it because there's still a lot of lightning, a lot of hail. Let me see if there's any new information from the National Weather Service. Not a whole lot going on in terms of that area. Let's go ahead and see latest update. Nope, that's going to be one severe storm just to the outside of our area. Not seeing a whole lot more, but let's go ahead and go to Jolena. She's going to talk about a couple of safe places to be if we see any of these tornadoes form around higher populated areas, because hey, we're all under that risk for hail, wind, and tornadoes throughout the evening. Back to you.
Yeah, tornadoes can be very unpredictable. Sometimes you're never going to know where you're going to be. So let's say you're at home and a tornado strikes. Be sure you're heading down to the basement or maybe the smallest center room of your house. The most important thing is to stay away from windows, okay? Always be sure that you're covering yourself. Now, if severe weather hits while you're at an office, or maybe you don't have a basement, maybe you live in an apartment building. Well, people in apartments, they can be vulnerable because there are no basements to hide. So here's what you need to do. You need to get to the lowest floor as soon as possible and then put many walls between you and also the outside. So that basically means be sure to hide in the bathroom, maybe in a closet. Also make sure that you are bringing something to cover your head, like a heavy blanket, even a mattress will work. And then hunker down in the building's interior stairwell. But regardless, you always have to have a plan. Now, if you happen to be out on the road and maybe taking shelter in a building and you can't, get under cover, just stay calm. Park your vehicle out of traffic. Be sure to put your head down below the windows. And if you don't have a blanket, which would be nice, but you have to have a blanket over your head. You can also use your coat or your hands and just stay in your car until you know it is safe. Lastly, if you are going to be outside, try to find shelter inside. If you can't, stay away from any trees or cars, anything that can hit you, and be sure that you're lying flat, face down on the ground. I know that sounds a little silly, but the whole point here is you need to cover your head in an effort to protect yourself from any flying debris. And of course, we know here in West Texas, those winds can really pack a punch. So Jordan, when we're talking about wind speeds, what are we talking about here?
Well, we're looking at the wind speeds within this storm itself up to about 70 miles an hour. So that's about as fast as you're typically driving along the highways, assuming you're following the speed limit. I know we all tend to drive a little bit fast out here, but this is going to be enough to really push your car around. This is going to be enough to pick up a lot of that flying debris around the region as well too. That's the biggest thing that we concern ourselves with. We have, a lot of very flat land. You don't see a whole lot of trees or brush or anything, but that also means, hey, something maybe in the back of your truck could easily fly out and then go around and hit other people, other cars, any kind of stuff around the area becomes more of a dangerous flying hazard. Plus, we're talking about some large-sized hail here too. We're looking at golf ball-sized hail. And golf balls, if a golf ball fell on your head, that's gonna hurt. But if it hits you on the side of the face at 70 miles an hour, that's gonna leave a big bruise. If not, it's actually cause significant injuries to you. So we're keeping our eye on a lot of that activity. And who knows, within the actual tornadoes themselves, well, we could actually start to see even stronger winds. But this makes sense. They went ahead and got rid of that tornado warning. So we're actually going to be jumping back to regular coverage pretty shortly, keeping an eye on some of these storms because this is certainly just the beginning of some activity. Luckily, it's not going to last into the overnight hours. I'm looking the majority of stuff is going to stick around until about 9 o'clock or so. So you got to bear with us for about the next 5 hours, but don't worry, that's what we're here for. We're going to keep you updated with the latest kind of information as we continue to watch all of these storms across the region and as we continue to push our way into this afternoon and evening. Already some pretty strong storms just on the northern end of our region, Gale, Lamesa, even Lenora just north of Big Spring. So we're seeing a lot of these storms really popping off across the area. As a matter of fact, I want to show you this just a little bit more. I want to show you some of our cameras. Looks very ominous out here over Midland, but actually looking out toward Big Spring, really scary looking. Here's the thing though, you don't need to be scared. We just need to be prepared more than anything else. Isn't that right, Jolena?
Jordan, always some good advice, and always good advice to be sure you're downloading that News West 9 app so you're always checking radar to keep you safe. Well, hey, let's talk about some of the news happening today. A very scary situation for Crane ISD students early this morning. So at around 7 o'clock, Crane Elementary was placed